So we just hit all the trends. We hit the fact that two sides, the ILA and the USMX, are going back to negotiating on January the 7th. That kind of happened over the New Year's Day break. But we have some more news. Maersk is actually advising its customers to remove all their cargo from East and Gulf Coast ports. Harder to say than you think. East and Gulf ports before the January the 15th deadline. How disruptive could that be to the U.S. supply chain? Just the fact that a company this size is warning their customers, just get away from those ports, get your cargo away from those ports.
Yeah, this is not atypical. Anytime we see a strike or a threat of strike, whether it's rail or at the ports, we see the ocean container lines put out warnings to make sure that their customer freight isn't stranded in this situation. So we also have seen Hapag-Lloyd put surcharges and implement surcharges to customers just to prepare for what could be a disruptive event.
Yeah, MSC, Hapag-Lloyd, and Maersk all instituting these surcharges basically to mitigate the cost of a possible strike disruption. We've talked about this a lot here on the show, Craig. The East and Gulf Coast ports, when you look at the numbers, 56% of U.S. imports, 68% of U.S. exports, auto, pharmaceuticals, and aerospace expected to be the most deeply impacted. As we look at the possibility of this happening again just about 2 weeks from today, how do you see shippers responding? Is it simply just good enough to go to the West Coast ports? Or are you concerned that there's going to be a lot of congestion, log jams there when you're talking to your customers?
Well, the longshoremen on the West Coast have said that they're actually going to, they will not break the strike. So if there's a strike on the East Coast ports, they will also not unload those containers that were due for the East Coast. So what we've seen is shippers have been preparing for this for months. This is not an unexpected event. And so there has been a lot of pre-stocking, ordering inventory well in advance of this. And remember, this is they were supposed to have gone on strike or had planned on potentially going on strike in November, and that got delayed till after the election and into January.
So I know this is all after the holiday shopping season, of course, we're into the new year. But does this have the potential to lead to some type of shortages on shelves, slower delivery times for things that we order, whether it be furniture, cars, pharmaceuticals, et cetera?
Assuming that it doesn't go on for very long. So even if it's just a couple of day strike, which I think that's usually what we see in these supply chain disruptions, we don't see them because they are so catastrophic. We don't typically see them take place over the course of months. Assuming that it is a short event, then you're unlikely to see something that's going to disrupt consumers.
I've been talking about this quite a bit. Coming up in mid-January, there's the potential for just a confluence of a lot of different issues. So again, we could have a strike on the 15th, technically starting on the 16th. At the same time, the president-elect's promised that said he would institute tariffs on the 20th, and then we have an earlier than normal Lunar New Year on January the 29th. Generally, there's a pull forward about 1 or 2 weeks ahead of the Lunar New Year because all the workers take a holiday. As we're looking at that time period, about mid-January, how big of a deal could this be? Could this be a supply chain disruption on the level of the pandemic? Where would you put it? Not
at all. I think the pandemic was a black swan event. It was something unexpected. Everything that you've talked about has been anticipated. Donald Trump's trade policy, clearly we knew when he was coming to office, he was planning to put tariffs. Shippers have been expecting that. So because this isn't an unexpected event, I mean, during COVID, we effectively shut down the global supply chain and the global manufacturing economy. That is not the case here. We're dealing with systematic disruptions that are periodically do take place, and they will be catastrophic, but they rarely ever actually live up to what the threat is.